Houston, we have a problem. DJ Apollo has landed. I repeat, DJ Apollo has landed.
Hear me?
Greetings and salutations. You are listening to the Tales of Music and Film podcast. My name is Christian Taylor, and I personally want to thank you for clicking on today's episode. And today we're going to be doing something really cool, guys. So I'm going to be doing 2 episodes in one day, just because I really feel like it. Since I've been gone, for almost a month, I thought it'd be cool to do 2 episodes in one day, because I wanted to give you guys some more content to listen to, since I'm not uploading as frequently due to my busy schedule, So, again, thank you for clicking on this episode. This is going to be a really exciting one. So, my last recording, the other episode that I recorded today, I did a review of my experience watching the brand new horror film called Obsession, which you guys can go listen to. I'll be uploading that and this episode back to back for Season 12. So, these will be episodes 3 and 4 for Season 12. So, that is very exciting. So, in this episode, we're going to be doing something a little different. We're not going to be talking about a specific, album or movie. We're going to be talking about this topic that just randomly popped into my head. It's kind of funny. I've talked about this before, but the strangest ideas pop into my head, while I'm working at Walmart. I'll be out pushing carts, or, later in the shift, I'll be in the store, helping with returns. I'll be putting stuff away, and then these random thoughts just pop into my head, over the course, my 5 to 7 hour shifts, I have millions of ideas that run through my head. I don't know if it's my ADHD or something, but the most random things pop into my head. I remember one time I was putting returns away, and this idea popped into my head, hey, how about we talk about some video game movies that you really enjoy? Because there are 3 video game movies that I want to talk about that are from very famous franchises that did an amazing job of capturing the atmosphere and the fun from the movies. And the first one that I'll talk about is the Ghostbusters 2009 video game. So this one is really special. So you guys know, I am a huge Ghostbusters fan. I've been a fan ever since I was a kid. I've watched the first 2, Ghostbusters 1 and 2, I watched those all the time growing up. Those along with the Blues Brothers, Indiana Jones, the Goonies, or The Great Outdoors, or Spaceballs, all those movies. I was an 80s kid, I'm really fully convinced that in another life I was supposed to grow up in the 80s, because literally most of the films I grew up watching were 80s films. There was just something about that specific decade, just the content that was coming out during that time, it was just perfection. There were so many good films that came out in that decade. And then there was Batman 1989, there were just so many amazing films that helped, make me who I am now. And so, yeah, Ghostbusters has always had a very special place in my heart. And I reviewed all 4 of the main films on my channel. So Ghostbusters 1 and 2, Ghostbusters Afterlife, and Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. So you guys can go back and listen to those episodes if you want to. But today we're going to be talking about the 2009 video game. So this game is a third-person shooter, and it's basically a continuation of the story. And from what I've seen, in most of the Ghostbusters community, they consider this to be Ghostbusters 3. Now, apparently, if you do some research, apparently there were plans to make a Ghostbusters 3 in around 1991, and everything seemed to be set, but unfortunately, it never got to be made, because I believe Bill Murray said that he did not want to play Peter Venkman again. Apparently, they had to do a lot of convincing to him to get him back for the second movie, I don't know why he was making such a big deal about it. I don't know. It's just Bill, it's your most famous character. Why would you not play him? Seems like you've played him before. Seems like an easy paycheck to me. Don't understand why he was making such a big fuss about it. Apparently, he did not want to play the character again, so I guess that kind of killed the chances of us getting a 3rd movie. That sucks, There isn't a day that goes by that I wish we could have gotten that 3rd movie. But theoretically, we still did get it, just in video game form. So from what I've read, this game seems to have used the script of what would have been the Ghostbusters 3 script, and they adapted it into a video game. And this game does such an amazing job of capturing, the feel and atmosphere of the first 2 movies, and it uses the same soundtrack music, from the films, and all the main actors came back. Annie Potts came back to voice herself, along with Dan Aykroyd, Bill Murray, Ernie Hudson, and Harold Ramis. All four of them came back to voice themselves. And the actor who played Walter Peck in the first movie, he came back to voice himself. And the guy who played the villain in Ghostbusters 2, he came back to voice himself because the painting is still in the firehouse and you can interact with it. So I thought that was kind of cool. And a nice little Easter egg. Bill Murray's brother voiced the new mayor in that game as well. And let's see here. So the Ghostbusters video game is a critically acclaimed third-person shooter that serves as a sequel to the films featuring the original cast. Players take on the role of a new recruit, using proton packs and traps to bust ghosts in destructible environments, with gameplay focused on wrangling and capturing ghosts. A remastered version with updated visuals was released in 2019, which would have been the game's 10th anniversary, for modern consoles and PC, adding 4K support, improved textures, and other enhancements. So yeah, the game kind of has like this reward system set up where like there is some replay value to it. So in the game you play as a new recruit to the team, and you get to interact, with the other characters, and you can upgrade your gear the more you play the game. Like the more ghosts you trap, I guess that makes like your XP go up in rank. And I saw that if you get yourself to a high enough ranking, you can get the golden proton pack, and I believe it has stuff like it barely overheats. Like your starting proton pack, it overheats pretty quickly. Like your traps all your gear gets upgraded, and it makes it easier the more you play the game. And I also believe there's higher difficulties with the game as well, which is cool. The game is pretty long. I don't think it's too long. I remember looking at playlists once. I think in a normal playthrough, it'll take you maybe 10 to 14 hours to finish the story. It just kind of depends, because there is collectibles and stuff you can find too. And from what I understand, the maps in that game are actually pretty big too. And I think it's kind of cool how the attention to detail in the game's amazing. Some of the key features, so authentic experiences featuring the voices and likeness of the original film cast. That's a plus. The game takes place in 1991, just 2 years after the events of Ghostbusters 2, which I think is really cool. The one thing I am very bummed about is that Sigourney Weaver and trying to think, what's the guy's name who played the annoying neighbor? One second here. I swear, dude, my brain, I just cannot remember. Yeah, Rick Moranis. Rick Moranis and Sigourney Weaver are not back to play their characters in this game, which is really unfortunate. The game is amazing, but I just wish they could have been there too. But there is a nice reference to Harold Ramis. There is an Easter egg. Well, there are references. I remember when they remastered the game in 2019, when you're the opening credits has a rest in peace to Harold Ramis, because he had passed away 5 years after the game came out in 2014. So they have a rest in peace to Harold Ramis in the remastered version. And Rick Moranis, so in the firehouse, if you look closely, there is a computer with a note left in front of the screen, and it says, wasn't feeling the greatest, went home early, signed Rick's character. So I thought it was kind of cool they had a reference to him in there. But I just wish the two of them could have voiced themselves in this as well, because it was cool having the full team and everything, but with them gone, it just kind of felt like something was missing. They were good additions to the cast. So gameplay-wise, it's a third-person shooter where you use proton packs to weaken ghosts and then wrestle them into traps with physics-based mechanics. So yeah, this is what I was mentioning earlier. So upgrades. Use the PKE meters and ghost lights to find ghosts and relics, earning cash to upgrade your proton pack and other gear. So story. An original story that acts as an unofficial Ghostbusters 3, featuring familiar locations and new challenges, which is very amazing. So yeah, like I remember in the story, towards the beginning, you actually go back to the hotel that the guys went to in the first movie when they had their first job of capturing Slimer, which I think was kind of a reference to John Belushi. I don't think it was, but potentially. Um, but anyway, yeah, you actually go back to the hotel where it all started. And I actually believe later on in the game, you actually go back to the library and you see the librarian ghost from the first movie as well. So yeah, there was some good callback, and you even fight the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man again in that game as well. So yeah, a lot of callbacks, to the first and second movie. So, I mean, honestly, in my opinion, this is Ghostbusters 3. I mean, even though it's kind of... Fans debate whether or not if it is canon, because when you watch Frozen Empire, there's no mention of this game, like, at all. Because there's a scene in Frozen Empire where they're watching, the television, and they're on the news, and people are like, we have not seen the Ghostbusters since the events of Ghostbusters 2. So it's kind of like, well, I guess it kind of confirms it. But in my opinion, it's canon. It's a great story. I feel like it would be a disservice to pretend it doesn't exist. Like, I think video game movies have a right to be canon. I think this movie did an amazing job of continuing the story, and I think it's a great continuation. So yeah, as far as I'm concerned, it is Ghostbusters 3. I haven't played it yet, personally, but I need to. And the game was actually met with very good success. I remember reading here that, let me see, here, give me a second. Let's see, so, reception, praise for capturing the feel of the movies and its fan service, considered one of the best film-to-game adaptations. The original 2009 version was a commercial success, selling over 3 million copies, so yeah, it was a good hit with the fans. I do plan on playing it at some point. I need to. But yeah, I've heard nothing but good things about it. So that is, let's see, so that's going to be me talking about the Ghostbusters video game. Now, the second movie video game that I want to talk about is Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. Now, this is a game, it's a first-person single-player action-adventure game from Machine Games. It's set in 1937, just a year after the events of Raiders in the Lost Ark, where Indy investigates a stolen artifact that leads to a global conspiracy involving the Great Circle. The game blends exploration, puzzle solving, stealth, and combat, featuring iconic locations like the Vatican and Egypt. It was released in late 2024 for PC and Xbox, with a PS5 version following in April of 2025. It received praise from its story, voice acting, especially Troy Baker as Indy, and a faithfulness to the films, despite some technical issues on certain platforms. So yeah, I was honestly blown away with how good this game is. I mean, Indiana Jones, it's my favorite franchise of all time. I mean, you guys, you know this. I've covered all 5 of the movies here on the podcast, and if you want, I would highly recommend you go check those movies out, those recordings. I can never stop talking about, Indiana Jones. Like, for example, Raiders of the Lost Ark is 45 years old this year, and there's a theater near me that's going to be screening the film here in a few weeks to celebrate the 45th anniversary, and I want to go see it in theaters. And as of right now, the only Indiana Jones films I have not seen yet in theaters is Raiders of the Lost Ark and Temple of Doom. So that's a bucket list thing for me to make sure I see all 5 in theaters. It's a small little thing that I wanted to do, but I don't know. When they first announced this, I was kind of iffy about it. Funny enough, you want to know how I learned about this game was in 2019, I went to no, not 2019, 2021. In 2021, I went to not 21. Hold on, 2022. I went to the St. Louis Fan Expo, and that year, one of the guests was Nellen North, who voiced Nathan Drake in the Uncharted video games, and I met him, and I got a few photos taken with him, and I was wearing my very crappy Indiana Jones costume that I threw together at the last minute, and he really liked the outfit, and he wanted to talk to me for a few minutes. He's a super nice guy, and I remember we were talking about, he told me that when he was, when he was trying to come up with a mindset on how to view Nathan Drake, he said he based his performance off two characters, Indiana Jones and John McClane from the Die Hard film starring Bruce Willis. And it was kind of funny, those are like two really good characters. That's basically who Indy was, But I think not Indy, with Nathan Drake. He was basically a mix of John McClane and Indiana Jones. Those are the two best characters he could have picked, to voice the character. And I remember him telling me, he's like, hey, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but I did learn that there is an Indiana Jones video game underway, and I was like, oh, really? I'll have to look into that. Then, I think I think a year or two later, literally the following year, I believe it was announced, and then in 24 it was released, and I didn't buy it, unfortunately, because I couldn't bring myself to buy an $80 game. It's just I think video games now are just extremely overpriced, and I've kind of retired from the gaming world. And once I entered college, video games really started to die out, and then once I graduated, I was just kind of and it's just not very appealing to me anymore. I think video games quality has went down significantly. For us kids who grew up in the early 2000s, video games were at their peak. But then by 2015, the quality in games just kept dropping. And then a decade later, it's just awful. Games today they're way too expensive, too much DLC. It's when you buy the main game, you don't get very much. You have to spend another $50 to get the full game. I miss the good old days, when games were $50, and when you bought it, you had a ton of stuff to do in them, and the DLCs were a great addition. But it's now it's the exact opposite. It's you want the full game, you have to spend an extra $100 to get everything. It's ridiculous. Good old-fashioned greed, ladies and gentlemen, the root of all evil, money. But anyway, I did go on YouTube, and I did watch a lot of YouTubers do their walkthroughs of the game, and man, I was blown away with how good it was. This game, it captures the movies perfectly, and it does a great job of answering. What I enjoyed most about Great Circle was how it did a great job of answering some questions about what happened, because what happened in between Raiders and Last Crusade. Because I remember growing up, I always wondered, I wonder what happened to Marion, because we don't see her in Last Crusade, which takes place in 1938, which Raiders, the first movie, takes place in 1936. So it's kind of what happened to Marion. So this movie does an amazing job of explaining, things, that their relationship kind of went sour because Andy just couldn't bring himself to stop going on adventures, and then one time he went on an expedition in Egypt, I believe, and when he came back, Marion was gone, and she took off, and I just think the voice actors in this, in the motion, it wasn't just voice acting. If you guys go watch, Troy Baker became Indy. He did the motion capture and everything. The guy who voiced Marcus Brody in this was perfect. Everybody involved in this, it was amazing. You guys, you can go on YouTube and look up the motion capture footage. Guys, I would love to give that a try someday. I know it's probably going to be extremely difficult. I've always wanted to get motion tracking a try. That looks amazing. And the story, it's we get this really cool opening to Great Circle where you're playing as Indy at the beginning of Raiders of the Lost Ark. It is a full, recreation of the opening scene in Raiders where Indy and his team are trying to find the golden idol, and they kind of expanded it a little bit. When you're playing the game, you actually find Forrest. So Forrest Stoll is a guy that Indy mentions who is a competitor, and when you're playing the extended edition of the opening scene, you actually find the camp that Forrest Stoll had set up, and him and his crew were gone. And you walk through the jungle, and then eventually all the scenes from the movie play out where the guy, draws his gun on Indy, and then you actually have to press the button for him to draw his whip. Now, this whole opening scene, it's a mix of using nostalgia to teach you how to play the game. Like you play, it's like, oh, you click E to whip, and it teaches you all the mechanics. So like, oh, you press this button to move stuff. Oh, you press this button to crouch. It acts as like a tutorial, which honestly, they couldn't have picked a better scene, to do that. Like if you're going to use a scene to introduce your character and how to introduce everybody to the gameplay of this game, I think the opening of Raiders was the perfect choice. And yeah, it's great, and it's almost identical. They did have a few slip ups, like for example, when Indy and Alfred Molina's character get into the cave, when we get to the scene of them, seeing the golden idol at the end of the hallway, when Indy shoves Alfred Molina against the wall and says, that's what scares me, he leans down and activates one of the traps, and, the arrow, shoots out. We don't get the moment of Indy telling him to stay here if you insist, Senor. Like, we don't get that in this. I guess they forgot about that, and then Indy doesn't do it the way he does in the movie. Like in the game, so in the movie, we see him dodge, the steps that would activate the arrows. In the game, what you have to do is you use the torch, and you click the circles, and it makes the panels come down, so you know which ones to avoid, and then after you grab the idol and the temple starts coming down, what Indy does, we all know the scene where he slides under the door and he grabs his whip. I don't know how they screwed this up, but in the game, obviously in the film, when he slides under the door, he grabs his whip, but for some reason in the game he loses his hat. I'm like, guys, that happens in Temple of Doom, not Raiders of the Lost Ark. I don't know how they messed that up, but in the game, when he ducks under the door, his hat comes off, but it was the whip that he grabs, not the hat. And it was just small little things like that. It was like 95% a recreation, but no big deal. Like this, and another thing this movie answers is, so if you guys remember, in Last Crusade, Indy's working at a different college. So you're kind of like, wait a minute, why isn't he at the one in Connecticut? And then this game does an amazing job. So like later on in the story, Indy calls Marcus to get some information on something, and back towards the beginning of the movie, when Indy's getting ready to go on this adventure, Marcus tells him, like, Indy, you can't leave. The college won't negotiate leave for this down the middle of midterms. Like, Marcus is trying to tell Indy not to leave because there will be consequences for this. And later on in the game, when him and Gina arrive at that village, Indy calls Marcus for information on something they're looking into. And that was when Marcus breaks the news to him that the college administration had a meeting, basically telling Marcus, like, Dr. Jones is being let go. So Marcus breaks the news to him that they're firing him because he's been gone, too many times, and then so that explains why in Last Crusade why him and Marcus are at a different college. So that was a nice little detail there that they put in there. And like the gameplay in this is perfect. So a lot of people did not like the fact that in this game it was a first-person shooter. But I think that was the right approach because they want you to feel like you're Indy, so it's like you're looking through his eyes. I feel like it's a third-person shooter. It would have just been a copy-paste of Uncharted, which I think would not have been a good thing. I think too many people were just wanting an Uncharted copycat because Indy and not Nathan Drake. So I think them doing first-person was the right thing to do. And it's actually, the one thing I will say, I don't know why they bothered with the whole character skin thing. So, for any of you who don't know, like every anniversary of the game, they keep releasing like skin packs. Like you can change Indy's outfit. Like as of right now, you can change it to the Temple of Doom outfit where his shirt's all torn up. There is the Temple of Doom white suit that he wore. You can do the suit that he wore later in the film when he's at the dinner table in Temple of Doom. Trying to think. Oh, you can also do the suit that he wore towards the beginning of Last Crusade when he gets off the boat in Venice. But my whole thing, this is first person. The only time you can see the outfits is during cutscenes. You know, like 90% of the game, it's first person. So I don't understand why they even bother doing that, because you can't see the outfit only during cutscenes. But the entire gameplay, you can't see it. So I kind of feel like that was a waste of time, but that's just my opinion. But yeah, the story itself, like, I mean, dude, the locations, you go all over the world, because Indy tells, so the main girl in this, her name is Gina, and she's a journalist looking for her sister, Dr. Lauren Lombardi, I believe her name is, and she's an expert in ancient languages. And her and Indy team up because she was looking into the Great Circle as well. And the adventure is amazing. And one of my favorite, I think my favorite scene in this game was when you guys go to the Himalayas and you find a Nazi battleship like on top of one of the mountains, you know, and you and her have to go through the ship trying to figure out like what happened, and then you find Gina's sister's body, and all the other Nazi officers frozen because they were in the cold way too long, and it's really amazing. And then the Nazis show up, you have a fight, and then an explosion happens, and the ship goes down the mountain, and then you have to use one of the stones from the Great Circle, and then Indy says a word in a Damic, and it makes this like portal open up, and they get teleported to Shanghai. Then there's this whole amazing sequence where the Shanghai city is being bombed, and you have to escape by getting in a crashed plane. I mean, like, that whole sequence felt like it was taken, straight out of the movies. I mean, this whole game really did feel like, what if they had made an Indiana Jones movie in between Temple of Doom and Last Crusade? Because you had Raiders in 1981, then you had Temple of Doom in 1984, and then we didn't get Last Crusade until 1989. So there was a 5-year wait, for Indy 3. So this game really did feel like, what if an indie film had come out in like 1986 or 87 or something? Like, this movie captured the feel of the first 3 films, I mean, perfectly. And I loved how this game's ending had a nice little callback to the movie Casablanca with Humphrey Bogart. That's a great movie. I've watched it a couple of times. Like, it's a classic. The game ends with Indy and Gina stopping the Nazis from, getting to the Great Circle, and Gina gets on a plane to leave, and the final shot is her getting on the plane, and it drives off the runway into the sunset, as it takes off. Nice little callback to the ending of Casablanca, where the main dude's girlfriend leaves on a plane as well. So I thought that was a nice little callback to a very classic movie. But I will play this game for myself at some point, but it was a perfect continuation of the story. Like, now that the movies are done, I think the best approach is to continue the story in video games. Like, The Great Circle did an amazing job. Machine Games did an amazing job with this, and I want to high-five everybody involved in making this. Like, it's great, and I love the attention to detail and everything. And like, personally, another one of my favorite scenes was when Indy goes to Italy to meet with his friend Antonio, and he's a priest over there in the over in Italy in the chapel, and you're in disguise as one of the priests and in the Vatican, and you have to explore the Vatican to find the clues you're looking for and stuff. And that whole sequence was amazing. So before we go into what I consider to be the greatest video game movie ever made, so we're going to be going into some gameplay and story right quick for Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. So perspective, primarily first person, switching to third person for whip-based stuff. the core loop, a mix of cinematic set pieces, archaeological puzzles, and combat. Combat encourages using fists, the whip, and environmental objects, with firearms as a secondary option. The puzzles involve using Indy's camera to take pictures for clues and solving ancient riddles. Now that was a nice little addition. So like one of the gameplay mechanics. So in this game, Indy carries a camera that you buy at the Vatican, and you use it for the rest of the game, where you take pictures of stuff to find clues later. And I thought that was a nice little change, because we never really saw Indy use a camera. He never used a camera once in any of the movies, so I thought that was a nice little new thing to use. Progression, so adventure points earned from exploration and discoveries, and can upgrade Indy's skills. So yeah, another thing about this is that in this game, the more skills you get, the better. There's like skills you can buy. Like one of the things you can buy is this feature where if you're in a fist fight and you get like knocked and your health bar gets taken to 0 and you're hit on the ground, Indy's hat falls off, and what you do is your screen kind of goes gray, and then you have to crawl on the ground to grab your hat, and you get a quick cutscene of Indy getting up, putting his hat back on with a smirk on his face, like a nice little callback, to the movies. That is my favorite feature. Whoever came up with that thing is a bloody genius. And setting, a globe-throttling adventure in 1937, starting at the Marshall College and moving through Rome, Egypt, and other locations. So development and release. So developer Machine Games, known for the Wolfenstein games. I played both, very good. It was released in December of 24, and as of right now, the platforms you can play it on is the Xbox Series, XS, PC, Game Pass, PS5, and later Nintendo Switch 2. And for reception, the game was praised it had generally positive reviews, with highlights being the story, character of Indy, and the atmosphere. Criticism: some technical issues like frame rate drops and texture pop-ins, particularly on less powerful hardware. Yeah, I would recommend that if you do play this game, play it. I could see this game, you're going to need a very good game system for this one, because there's a lot of it's a big kind of open world game. So this, if you have an older console, I guess just make sure you have a good gaming system for this, because you could have some technical issues. That seems to be about it. So that's going to be the end for Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. So now we're going to be getting into what I consider to be the greatest video game movie ever released, and that is Alien Isolation. Now, Alien Isolation, I don't even know where to begin, guys. I mean, I could spend another an hour just talking about that game. Alien Isolation. I think it might be my favorite video game that I have ever played, in my life. I remember being a freshman in high school when this game came out back in 2014. I mean, this game took over the internet. I mean, every famous YouTuber that you can think of played it. I remember Markiplier, Jacksepticeye, the Rad Brad, everybody did, walkthroughs of this. I remember H2O Delirious did a walkthrough of it. That one was funny. All the YouTubers are playing it. I mean, this game took over the internet by storm with its insane story and the AI tech they used in this. It's absolutely insane. I mean, it's I've seen people play it for the first time. I mean, 10 years later, and it's still scaring. 12 years later, it's scaring the crap out of people. It has aged like fine wine, and it captures the atmosphere of the original Alien. I mean, perfectly. And my favorite thing about this is just the story of this game. It's amazing. And as far as I'm concerned, this game is canon. In my timeline, the only things that are canon is Alien Isolation, Aliens, and Alien Romulus. Everything else, like the Prometheus, Alien Covenant, Aliens 3 and 4, those don't exist. Those films are garbage. Want nothing to do with them. But anyway, that's just my opinion. Aliens and Aliens, and Alien Isolation, they're my top 3 in the Alien franchise. So in Alien Isolation, the story is just incredible. I love it. So you play as Amanda Ripley, and the game takes place 15 years after the events of the first game. So you find out in Aliens, the sequel, that I would highly recommend, if you guys are watching the Alien franchise for the first time, you guys need to watch the Alien and Aliens director's cuts, because they are way better. Both of them have additional scenes that are just amazing, and it helps answer more questions about the story. And for example, in Aliens, in the director's cut, we get this scene where Ripley finds out, Burke tells her, hey, your daughter is dead. So you find out. So Ripley, after the events of the first movie, she escapes in her escape pod, and she's the sole survivor of the Nostromo crew. And I have covered both Alien and Aliens on my podcast, and Alien 3, if you guys want to watch those. Those are really good recordings. I recommend you go check them out. But anyway, she's the sole survivor of her crew, and you find out in Aliens that she floated out there in her escape pod for 57 years. So in her pod, she went in a sleep chamber. So in the movies, it takes place in the future, and the cryo sleep chambers have been invented, where you're put into this frozen sleep state where your body doesn't age. You stay basically frozen in time. And Ripley was asleep in her chamber for 57 years until a salvage team found her pod just drifting out in space, and they rescued her and they brought her back to Earth. And she finds out that her daughter Amanda, passed away at the age of 66, and I believe the reason she died was because of cancer. And Ripley says that before she left to get on the Nostromo for the events of the first film, she had promised her that she would be home for her daughter's 11th birthday. So during the events of the first movie, she was 11. So let me do the math. So 15 years later. So 10 years later, she would have been 21. Okay, so Amanda is 26. Okay, yeah. So the Alien Isolation takes place 15 years later. So Amanda would have been 26 years old in this game, and you find out that she's been looking into what happened to her mom, and she's working at a station that's in the region where she went missing, and an antidroid named I can't remember his name. I'll have to look it up. Anyway, she gets informed by an antidroid guy that a team found the flight recorder unit of the Nostromo, which is, it's the recorder that recorded the conversations and stuff that went down on the ship. They found it floating, in space, I guess, with some of the other debris, because at the end of Alien, Ripley had to blow the ship up. And if you watch the Alien director's cut, it kind of gives more information to why she had to blow the ship up. It just wasn't savable. And that was because Ripley climbs down into the lower levels of the ship, like the basement, and she finds Dallas, he's stuck to the wall, and he's been impregnated. There's a alien inside of him growing, and it's gonna bust out of his chest, any moment. And you can see that the xenomorph has already started creating a hive in the lower levels of the Nostromo. And you can also see Brett's dead body. He's been cocooned as well. So it kind of explains, what happened. Because if you watch the standard theater cut, we never learn what happened, to Brett and Dallas. They just get snatched by the alien, and we never see them again. This additional scene I thought was horrifying, and then Ripley has to put Dallas out of his misery with the flamethrower. And I think that scene was very important, and I'm glad the director's cut exists, because that additional scene, I think, was very good at explaining, okay, there is no way we can save this ship. It needs to be destroyed. So it kind of gives more backstory to why, okay, like, there's no other way, we have to blow the ship up. So Ripley and a few other characters, it's a trio, they get tasked with going to a station called Sevastopol, which is where the team that found the flight recorder go to drop it off, I guess. So they go there, a ship takes them to the station, and they get a communication call from personnel on board, but they can't make out what it is. So Ripley and the other two characters decide to do an EVA where they use a telewire to climb from the ship to the station, and there's an incident and they get separated, but all three of them manage to get on board the station, and then Ripley manages to get into a compression chamber, depressurizes, and she's able to get out of her suit, and then now, for the entire 14-hour story, you are now trapped on this station, and over the course of 14 hours, you find out that this team that found the flight recorder unit, they had landed on LV-426, which is the planet that the Xenomorph ship had crashed on, the same ship that Ripley's team had investigated in the first movie. And this game does an amazing job. It answers a question, because you're like, wait a minute. So they followed, to the first film, they followed the distress beacon to the Xenomorph ship, and you're like, wait, how come no one else found how come the ship was never seen again after the events of the first film? Because you find out aliens that LV-426 had been turned into a habitation section where this giant city was built. This colony was built where people live, and they never encountered the ship once. You're like, why is that? You get a backstory where you play as one of the team members who landed on the planet, and one of the objectives, when you find an alien ship, you want it all for you guys want salvage rights to it. So what you do is you have to go into the ship and you turn the beacon off, so that way nobody else follows it. So now the ship's all yours. So this game did a very good job of explaining, oh, so that's why it was never seen again. They turned the beacon off. So yeah, that was a nice little attention to detail. But then, obviously the team finds the basement that one of the crew members of the Nostromo had found, that is filled with eggs. And of course, curiosity killed the cat. The crew decide, oh, we gotta go check this out. They go down to look at the eggs, and just as the story goes, one of the crew members gets a face hugger latched onto her face, and then they have to rush her to the Sevastopol station. Then of course, the creature busts out of her chest, it runs off, Xenomorph creature grows to a giant scary alien, then it starts killing all the personnel on board, until eventually, as you find out later in the game, there is a giant alien hive in the basement, but then... So yeah, the station, mostly everybody is dead because of these Xenomorph creatures, and over the course of 14 hours, the alien creature, you can't kill it. So throughout the game, it's like you get weapons as you progress through the game. Like one of the first weapons you get is a crowbar device that you use to open doors and vents, and you can use it as a weapon to whack any threats. But about halfway through the game is when you get the flamethrower, and eventually you can find schematics to build Molotov cocktails. And those are going to be like the cocktails and the flamethrower are your bread and butter for how to fight the Xenomorph creature. Like I said, you can't kill it. All you can do is scare it away with fire, because every hallway that you go down in the station, like, there are vents that the creature can crawl out of at any moment. And eventually you find a motion tracker device that you're going to be using throughout the entire game, and it starts to beep to let you know that there's something nearby. And what's really cool is, the AI of the alien, it actually pays attention to how you play the game. So throughout the game, it studies you, and it throws curveballs at you because it actually studies the way you play the game, which I think is insane. And another attention to detail, if you have your mic plugged in and you're talking, the creature can hear you and it'll run to your location. Like, how terrifying is that, you know? Dude, this game was really ahead of its time with the things that it has in there. Absolutely crazy. So yeah, you play as Amanda, and over the course of 14 hours, you know, you have to fight your way to a series of challenges, like unlocking doors, you know, and getting to these secret areas in Sebastopol. And over the course of 14 hours, you warn what happened to everybody on board. You'll learn, you know, like what caused, you know, everything to happen. And then Amanda eventually finds the flight recorder unit, and she hears the messages that her mother had left behind. And what really gets me is that they got Sigourney Weaver back to voice herself in this game. Because we all know the famous ending of Alien, where she leaves her final message, you know, saying, you know, cargo and ship destroyed. I'm the sole survivor of the Nostromo, signing off. You know, like, that's how the movie ends. And what this game does, you know, you find the final recording she left, and she says, additional report, this one is for my daughter. And she leaves a message, you know, saying, like, hi, Amanda, my sweetheart. I want you to know that I'm alive and well. And then she kind of explains to Amanda, like, what happened, how a xenomorph got on board their ship, and she had to blow the ship up. And as she said, I promise I'll see you again soon. And then, you know, the sad reality is they never see each other again. But man, Sigourney Weaver knocked it out of the park with that voice recording. Dude, it's so weird. Yeah, like she's in her 70s now, but her voice hasn't changed. I mean, like, she sounds exactly the same as she did in the first movie, so the recording worked perfectly. Her voice has not aged. There's just some people where it's like the body ages, but the voice doesn't, you know? So yeah, she did. I was just so happy they were able to get her back to voice herself in this. Like, that was amazing. And yeah, I mean, the gameplay in this is absolutely, I mean, it's terrifying, guys. I mean, like, one of the game mechanics is that when the xenomorph is walking around, like, you can't run. You have to crouch, and you have to hide in lockers to hide. And another thing that's terrifying, if the xenomorph, you have to hide the motion tracker. If you have the motion tracker out, the xenomorph can hear it beeping if you're hiding in the lockers. So you have to, like, press a button, you know, to put it in your pocket to have it stop making noise. And another thing that's terrifying, if it gets close enough to the locker, it can hear you breathing. So there's a button you have to press to cover your mouth to cover your breathing, because they can hear that too. And another thing that's terrifying, it's like halfway through the game, the xenomorph kind of just disappears for a while, and then you have a new threat. You actually find out that when Yutani had programmed all the anti-droids to kill whoever was left on the station. So now you have to deal with the creepy anti-droids, and they are extremely hard to kill. And over the course of the game, you find yourself a revolver and a shotgun, along with like EMP devices and stuff like that you can use. And you can use your crowbar device as a weapon as well. But these anti-droids are extremely hard to kill, and they'll strangle you, they'll hit you with stuff, and they're terrifying. You can hide from them too, but yeah, they are a force to be reckoned with, and they're just creepy with the way they talk. They really do get into, like, the uncanny valley of just like, oh my gosh, these things are terrifying. Who came up with the idea of making these things? You know? And I think for me, the most terrifying part of the game was when you play as Amanda and you get down into the basement and you realize that there is an alien hive on the station. There's like dozens and dozens of these xenomorph creatures. And the thing that's terrifying, when you go into the hive, you can't use the motion tracker because there are so many xenomorphs in that hive that the device won't help you. When you pull it out, there's hundreds of beeps going in every direction. So it's like, there are threats near you the entire time. And it's like, you have to be, like, extra careful. And you have to, like, stealthily go through the hive and activate these power things or whatever, and there's like xenomorphs everywhere. It's not just the one that you've been dealing with, earlier in the game. And it's just, you have to be like extra careful. I mean, it's terrifying. I remember the first time I played it, like, my heart was about to burst out of my chest. It was like one of the most like nerve-wracking like gaming experiences like of my life. I really want to go back and play it. I actually did end up platinuming this game on PlayStation 4. If there was ever a platinum that I'm proud of, that was it. I mean, I found all the collectibles. I played it on the hardest difficulty. I got through the game without dying, I mean, I got every achievement. It was a pain in the butt. I mean, it was so worth it. Like, I'm very proud of getting the platinum on that game. But another thing that I really enjoyed about this game is that there is some DLC that you can play where you get to play as Ellen Ripley on the Nostromo. And from what I understand is, so you play as Ellen, and the crew and all the other actors from Alien came back to voice themselves for this. But sadly, most of them have passed away, since then. The only ones that are left are the actress who played Lambert, the actor who played Dallas, and Sigourney Weaver. They're the only ones left. Everybody else from Alien has passed away, including the guy who played the Xenomorph. So yeah, all the main cast members most of them have all passed away since then. But back in 2014, they were all still alive, and they came back to voice themselves, for this DLC. And they come up with a plan to try to get the Xenomorph off their ship, and you have the option of playing as you have three options: Dallas, Ripley, and let's see, what was the other guy's name? Give me a minute here. Guys, I don't know what's going on with my brain today, but it's just like, I am so bad with names, it's not even funny. Here. Trusty cell phone. Give me a minute. Okay, let's see. His name... Oh, Parker. Yeah, you can play as Parker, Dallas, or Ripley. And I'm pretty sure most people picked Ripley. But yeah, the DLC does an amazing job of recapturing. Like, it literally feels like you're in the movie. You know what I mean? It's so great. And it's first person as well. And it uses the same mechanics as in the main game. And the game ends... So going back to the main story, after you find the flight recorder unit, all the other characters have now died, and Amanda is the sole survivor of the cast, and she manages to activate the Sevastopol self-destruct system, and the final cinematic is the ship falling into a planet's atmosphere, and it disintegrates, it falls apart, and then Ripley manages to get back on the ship that brought them there, but somehow a xenomorph had gotten on board, and she has to jump back out into space, and the game just ends with her floating out in space, and we see a light shine on her, and then that's it. We never know what happens to her after that. And from what I understand, the game didn't sell as well as planned. So I think me and a lot of people were wondering, are we ever going to get a sequel to this, But just recently, so Alien Romulus came out just last year, and it really ignited, it brought the franchise back to life. And that movie, the Alien franchise, desperately needed a pickup, because Alien Covenant and Prometheus, in my personal opinion, both those movies were awful. And Ridley Scott, I think, buried his own franchise. I mean, it's just like, we were going to get Alien 5, but of course it was canceled because they picked Ridley Scott as prequels that were terrible, So the franchise was basically dead in the water for a long time until Alien Romulus came out and made Alien popular again. I really enjoyed that movie, and I covered it on the podcast if you guys want to go check that out. Me and my friends went to go see it in the theater, and man, that was a blast. But anyway, since Alien got so popular again, Alien Isolation 2 was announced, and they're in the process of making it right now. They literally just dropped a new trailer for it, literally like last week or something. me and my best friend Jonathan, we were like over the moon excited for this game, and it just. I am so excited for this. Like, the trailer really looks like it's going to be doing an Aliens kind of theme, which I'm very excited to see. Like, I cannot wait to see a continuation of the story. So, yeah, I will definitely have to replay this to get ready for the sequel. So, before I go any further, I kind of figured it'd be a good idea to read to you the description and some of the aspects of Alien Isolation. So, Alien Isolation is a 2014 first-person survival horror game set 15 years after the original Alien film, where players control Amanda Ripley, Ellen Ripley's daughter, as she searches for her mother on the derelict space station Sevastopol. The core gameplay involves invading a single, highly intelligent and unpredictable xenomorph while scrounging for resources, crafting tools, and solving puzzles, emphasizing stealth and survival over combat. It's known for its intense atmosphere, strong AI, and faithfulness to the original film's horror, with mods like Survivor Mode offering challenge-based gameplay. So, key aspects of the game. The story: Amanda Ripley investigates her mother's disappearance by boarding the Sevastopol station, only to find it overrun by a deadly alien and desperate survivors. That's another thing you have to look out for in the game, is that there are survivors on the station who are killing anybody who gets in their way, they're trying to get off the station, so it's like every man for themselves kind of thing. So the gameplay focuses on stealth, resource management, and improvisation. Direct combat is often a last resort, as a xenomorph is nearly invincible. The game really does tell you have to hide from these things. And the xenomorph, like I said, you can't kill it. The only thing you can do is scare it off with fire. But stealth is going to be your number one thing, in this game. Like, even when it comes to fighting, the humans and anti-droids, even then the game's try to hide. Combat is really a last resort in this game. Let's see here. So the alien. A central feature is dynamic and reactive AI of the xenomorph, which learns from player actions and creates a constant sense of dread. It's whenever that thing is around, it's just it's a very deadly threat. I mean, it's just one of my favorite scenes in the game is when you have to sneak into the medical wing and then you see it crawl out of one of the vents, in the ceiling, and then you have that insane music playing, it just, you're in for a bad time. And the dread in this game is very real. So in the atmosphere, it recreates the claustrophobic retro-futuristic aesthetic of the 1979 film, with detailed environments and sound design to build tension. One of the things I will tell you guys, if you want to make this game not be as stressful as it is, here's what I do. Turn the brightness all the way up, and then go into your settings and turn the background music off. Those are two things that will help your gameplay dramatically. It helps. So, enemies. In addition to the xenomorph, players must contend with hostile humans and malfunctioning anti-droids, or working Joes, as they're called. So, modes. The mods in the game includes the main story, Survivor mode, and for time-based challenges, and DLC that adds new missions and characters. Now, why it's notable, widely praised as one of the best survival horror games, practically for its terrifying and intelligent alien AI. Successfully captures the feeling of being hunted in the original Alien film. Guys, as far as I'm concerned, I think Alien Isolation is the best, horror video game, ever made. And it's amazing. It kind of blows my mind it didn't sell as good as it did when it was released in 2014. I think this game has gotten more attention as time has gone on. And I think with the announcement of Alien Isolation 2, I think a lot more people are going to be coming back to this, which I think is a good thing. But I feel like this game was a prime example of it was ahead of its time kind of thing. Like, if it came out today, I think it would be a huge success. But I mean, I think the game has gotten more attention. Unfortunately, sometimes things come out ahead of their time and they don't get praise until like years later. Movies like The Thing, for example, like that's one of my favorite. I think it's one of the greatest horror films of all time. But when it came out, it was a commercial failure. Unfortunately, it didn't get big until years later after it came out. Unfortunately, that just happens sometimes. But yeah, Alien Isolation, I think it still holds up extremely well. And if you want a good horror game experience, definitely go check it out. It's amazing. I think it would do the game. I think it would do the company well to remaster it for PlayStation 5 to get because for any of you who don't know, the famous Telltale game, The Wolf Among Us. It's finally getting a sequel. It's set to come out next year for PlayStation 5. And the first Wolf Among Us game came out all the way back in 2013. So what they're doing is they're remastering the first game and releasing it for PlayStation 5 to get fans, re-involved, with the story. That way everybody's ready for the new one comes out. Because I'm sure that'll help with the sales and everything. Because it's been, like 14, it's been like a 13, 14 year wait for this sequel. So that's a long time. So I think it would be good for this company to remaster Alien Isolation for PlayStation 5 to get people, into the story. That way everybody's ready for when Alien Isolation 2 comes out. I think that'd be a good thing to do. But that is going to wrap up my covering of my top 3 favorite video game movies. I did an amazing job capturing the feel of the films. So, hope you guys really enjoyed this recording. I know it was something different, but this was a lot of fun. This was just an idea that I had that I wanted to try out. So, hope you enjoyed this episode, and take care of yourselves. And remember, the positive thoughts, keep working hard, keep living life to the fullest, and keep taking opportunities. So, and be sure to help each other out. We gotta help. We're all human beings on this beautiful planet of ours. We gotta help each other out. So, you guys take care of yourselves. It's summer, so hope you guys have an excellent summer. And I got a lot of awesome recordings underway that you're not gonna want to miss. So, be sure to stay tuned. So until next time, my name is Christian Taylor, and you are listening to the Tales of Music and Film.